We find out who the owl-faced demon possessor is, and Luke makes a tough decision about Simon. Let's break down Season 3, Episode 3 of Shadowhunters right here on What Happened. What's going on, Shadowhunters family? Lisa here with this week's recap for the episode titled What Lies Beneath, which just reminds me of that horror movie, but also in this episode, I'm pretty sure it references how Jonathan's gross dead body is beneath the sacred tomb that Lilith is filling with her disciples' blood. So this episode, I thought it was kind of fun because I liked getting to see a different side of Maris, and that bonding moment between her and Magnus was just so good. We also get to see a lot more of Raphael as a character in this episode who I've always been intrigued by, and David Castro just does so well giving Raphael a great arc in this episode alone. Like, we've obviously seen him change throughout the time we've had with him on the show, but this one, such a great arc in such a short amount of time. So let's go ahead and break down the episode and talk about Raphael first. Last we saw, he was holding someone in the basement of the Hotel du Mort, giving her vampire tranquilizer and burning her, and it is Heidi, who we saw last season, who was a mundane that Simon thought he had killed. Well, seems like she's become Raphael's little pet project. We first see him in this episode showing off his softer side on a walk with his sister Rosa, who tells Raphael he reminds her of her big brother, whose name she just can't remember. Raphael says that he knows him and then starts telling Rosa stories about their childhood, and it's really sweet until Rosa says Raphael just disappeared one day and never said goodbye, and Raphael really starts to get emotional and tells Rosa that he did say goodbye, and yeah, it just gets to be this big emotional ball of tears. Raphael's crying, makes you want to cry, but it's all broken up when Raphael gets a phone call and he returns home to see that Heidi has woken up and gone a little crazy. Yeah, she's sitting drinking bags of blood, and she's also thrown bags of blood all over the room, so she's sitting in a big pile of blood. It's like she's starting to get a little bit of cabin fever and she wants to leave and meet her sire, so Raphael says she can, but ends up tricking her and knocking her back out. He later gets a call that informs him that his sister Rosa died, and Izzy comes over to comfort him. She plans to go to Rosa's funeral since Raphael can't because it's during the day, and it seems like things are good between them until Raphael takes a look at Izzy's wrist and her veins just start to like call out to him, like they're extra nice and plumpy, and yeah, he pulls himself away and kind of goes cold to her again. Like, he knows that if he gets too close, he could go back down a dark path. While all this is happening, Simon's trying to figure out what the hell is on his forehead. Seems like Glenn, the guy that got slammed into the truck, is pretty banged up and not healing like he should, so now Luke is caught in between a rock and a hard place when it comes to his pack and Simon. Russell tells Luke he's going to have to pick a side when it comes to protecting the pack or Simon. Luke now has to deal with this situation, plus the fact that Ollie talks a lot, won't shut up about the shadow world, and says that she told her partner Sam about it, and she just doesn't realize how severe this could all be, how much danger she could be in, and Luke tries to tell her that, but he also then starts thinking about what he should do with Simon. Meanwhile, Simon and Maya go to see Clary because they're hoping that Clary recognizes the symbol, but she doesn't, and I think they say Magnus doesn't either, so Clary suggests that it's a question for a vampire. So Simon seeks out the one vampire he can to ask, and that's Raphael, who's sitting on his car in an alley still devastated from his sister's death. Simon is definitely the last person Raphael wants to see, and is mad when Simon asks for his help, since Raphael offered Simon help like twice before if he told Raphael how he became a daylighter, but Simon refused. Simon just keeps rambling, and it gets Raphael madder, so much so that Raphael approaches Simon and it activates Simon's mark, which again throws Raphael against the wall. Raphael then tells Simon to stay away from him. Simon then goes to his next choice, talking to the Seelie Queen, which Maya really does not want him to do because she thinks that the Seelie Queen's just gonna keep him. Simon does attempt to go see the Seelie Queen, but it seems like he's been locked out of the Seelie realm. When Simon returns to the boathouse, Luke is there, and neither really have to say anything. Simon immediately knows what has to happen, so he says he'll be back the next day to move his stuff out. We then see Raphael stumble home, pop his shoulder back in, and find his pal beat up on the floor, who informs Raphael that Heidi is gone, which does not sound good. Like, I'm guessing that maybe Raphael was somehow experimenting on Heidi, maybe trying to make his own daylighter, but she seems like a force to be reckoned with, so her on the loose is not a good sign. Also, what exactly were Raphael's intentions with Heidi? As far as the more lighthearted-ish storyline, we have Maris returning to town. She wants to have dinner with the kids, and the kids are on edge, thinking that maybe Maris is on edge because of the divorce, and they think that she's going to start trying to pick their lives apart, and it's just not going to be a good family dinner. So Magnus offers his place for the dinner as, you know, kind of this peace place, you know, where the Institute won't make her on edge, and Izzy invites him to actually attend as well. Because of another mission, Izzy and Jace bail on the dinner, leaving Magnus and Alec to entertain Maris. I love this whole cooking scene where Alec is trying to make Maris's favorite stew and Magnus tries it and pretends that it's good, but it's actually awful, and so he uses his magic behind Alec's back to make it good. Like, just such a relatable moment. Magnus and Alec are pretty shocked when Maris comes strolling in, being the happiest we've ever seen her. Maris and Magnus end up swapping stories, the truth comes out about Alec's cooking, and all seems fine and dandy until Maris reveals the real reason she's there. Turns out that because of Malachi's coup, the Clave have reopened their investigations on former Circle members, and after her review, Maris has been labeled a traitor and will be stripped of her runes and exiled from Alicante. Alec is pissed because Maris's punishment to him seems worse than his dad's and other members, but Maris fesses up to all the bad things she did and how the punishment is just. She also tells Alec how proud she is of him and she doesn't want him to fight for her because she got the punishment she deserves. It's now up to his generation to be wiser than hers and change things. Kinda sounds familiar, right? When Maris goes to leave, she tells Alec she wants to tell Izzy and Jace herself. She then has a really touching moment with Magnus.
But seeing you stand by Alec, it's what every mother wants for her children. Thank you for loving my boy.
I'm honestly loving all the Malik scenes we've had so far this season. I feel like usually their relationship has more drama or one is being super serious or whatever, but so far this season we've gotten to see a fun, lighter side of this relationship with moments like the shampoo scene last episode and this whole cooking scene this episode, and I love it. We're balancing the drama with the fun and relatable stuff. Now for the rest of the episode. We see a girl named Morgan on the phone setting up some kind of show or event as she's walking home when she comes upon the creepy demon trenchcoat guy who we learn that they call Owlface in this episode. Morgan starts to run the other way and puts her phone in her purse, which is kind of crazy because if I had that phone in my hand and I came upon some creepy looking dude, I'd start calling 911 as well as running. Anyway, the demon does grab her and is about to possess her when thankfully Morgan is able to reach her pepper spray and she gets away as a cop car pulls up, scaring off the Owlface. Now back at the Institute, Jace is not sleeping still and is spending all his time watching the surveillance footage and having visions of Jonathan, who continues to taunt him. Now Clary's really starting to get worried about Jace, and Jace finally tells Clary that he thinks the Owlface is using glamour and it may be Jonathan. His theory strengthens when they learn the information about Morgan's attack and see that pepper spray worked on the Owlface, which means it must be part human. Clary tries to tell Jace it can't be Jonathan because Jonathan's dead and all of this, and this leads to Jace finally telling Clary about his dreams and visions of Jonathan, which started after the wish was made at the lake. Jace knows Morgan's throwing this big fundraiser, so instead of going to dinner with Maris, they need to go to this fundraiser because they think Jonathan will be there. Before the fundraiser, Clary asks Izzy if she's noticed anything different about Jace. When Izzy says no, Clary explains what's going on and Izzy decides to skip the family dinner and go with them to this fundraiser. At the fundraiser, they all split up with Izzy tasked to keeping an eye on Morgan, which she ends up failing. Why does she fail? It's because of Charlie. You remember the doctor from the vending machine fight? Yeah, he shows up trying to get Izzy's number, and she's hesitant at first because she's trying to do her job and keep a watch, but she ends up giving him the number, and when she does, she loses sight of Morgan, which just makes me think automatically that this Charlie doctor dude is just bad news. While this is happening, Jace sees Jonathan again, and the two go to a back room and have a fight where Jonathan tells Jace they're more alike than he thinks, and all of this kind of stuff to get, both of them riled up. Jonathan then tells Jace to kill him, but then disappears. Back in the main room, Izzy and Clary notice Morgan's gone, and they see her phone on the ground and they hear her scream, so they rush outside just in time to see Owlface starting to possess Morgan. Izzy uses her whip to pull Owl off of Morgan, but sadly it's too late and Morgan is possessed. Clary ends up face to face with the Owlface and she tells it to show its face and asks if it's Jonathan, which seems to throw this thing off and it runs away. Izzy and Clary are then able to capture Morgan and lock her up at the Institute. Izzy points out how Owlface couldn't be Jonathan because it didn't respond to the electrum in her whip, so now the girls are trying to figure out who it could be. It's obviously not demonish. We then see Lilith and her disciples at the church where they continue to drain their lifeblood into the sacred tomb so it can nourish Jonathan and prepare for his rebirth. The Owlface enters the church and we see it turn into none other than Jace. Yeah, I guess the reason Jace hasn't been sleeping and can't remember much is because he's moonlighting as Owlface, which does not seem like a good thing. And that wraps up the main events of this week's episode of Shadowhunters. I'm honestly excited to see more about this Jace and Jonathan bond and how it works and how exactly how exactly Jace is this Owlface. Like, is it actually him? Is it a form of him? Is he sleepwalking? What is going on with this dude? My favorite performer of this week was still David Castro as Raphael, and I'm very curious to see exactly what he's up to. Because now that Raphael has lost his last living family member, he really has nothing left to lose, so I feel like he could definitely be dangerous, so Simon better watch out. Now let's look at the promo for the next episode.
Sleep.
You will bring me 33 disciples so that my son can be reborn, and then I will destroy you.
Where have you been?
I have no idea. I think I'm losing my mind.
Tracking signals on fire. Upstairs. It's Raphael.
Alright guys, that looks like it's going to be a fun one, and we also get to see the introduction of Jordan, which should be interesting, because as much as I don't want another love triangle on this show, I think this one could be maybe fun. I don't know. I'd like to learn more about Maya, basically. Now hit me up in the comments with your thoughts on this episode. What were your favorite moments, least favorite moments? Which storyline do you want to see more of? And what are your predictions for the rest of the season? Let me know, then click right over here for some of my interviews from the Kids' Choice Awards. Subscribe if you like what you see. My name's Lisa. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you again soon.